All right. I think we are live. Gonna wait for this to all fire up. Hey, everybody, it's Tina-Desiree Berg with Status Coup News. It's Friday. That means it's time for some right-wing insanity report. I have joining me in the studio today, Eric Levai. You have seen his work in Rolling Stone and Daily Dot. He's also done research with think tanks on right-wing extremism. So pretty much an expert in this area. Welcome to the show, Eric. We're glad to have you.
Tina, it's Levai. We've been friends this long.
Oh my God, what did I say? Did I say Levai?
I hate to even do that, but
Levai, I knew that.
You know, I love you. No, don't. It's fine.
I love you too. My apologies. It's been a long day.
No.
Levai.
Thank you.
So right off the bat, we're looking at this week the third year anniversary of January 6th. We had the DOJ released had a press conference this week. They released some new stuff in that. We're going to take a look at that. Also, some newly acquired Bodycam footage. But before we do that, I wanted to play right off the top John Farina, who I was hoping to have join us today, but he is on his way down to D.C. They hit some traffic, so they're delayed a little bit. Hopefully, he will be able to make the tail end of the show and give us his thoughts. But he's in the chat. Welcome in the chat, John. We'll see if we put up some comments from you. But before we get into all this new evidence, let's revisit some of the old. John Farina was with us that day inside the inauguration tunnel. Some of the most violent acts that day occurred in that tunnel. John suffered cracked ribs from it. He's a hero. So let's revisit a montage of some of that footage right off the top.
Goddamn rats you are! Run, motherfuckers! USA! Right now! Hey, Go home. Pick the right side. Go home, man. Hey, come on. We don't want anything to do with you. Come on, man. You're going to get switched. Just go home. Come on, guys. Go home. Don't try to use that stick on me. I'm not hurting you. No stick.
Hard to watch even now. So that is a montage of some of the crazy footage that John Farina shot with us that day. He was live in that tunnel for Status Coup News, shooting that historic footage. He had ended up with 2 cracked ribs for obvious reasons. Really a lot of violence that happened that day in that tunnel. Eric, you recognize some of those individuals. We have Gina, David Dempsey was in the tunnel, DJ Rodriguez. Have you seen this footage before? Is this your first time seeing it? And what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, and I commend John for that was, I mean, actually, to be honest, like I had to like, turn that down during it just because like it is very hard to watch. Obviously I cannot imagine what it was like for John. You and I both have a lot of on the ground experience. But yeah, that's a tough one to watch.
Yeah.
But he captured history, and because of him, that people say a lot of things about January 6th, but the footage is undeniable. What's happening right there? You can't lie about that. I mean, people always try, but there it is because
There
of
it
John,
is.
and yeah. So very hard to watch.
Very hard to watch. I want to turn now, with that in mind, I want to turn now to a DOJ press conference that happened on the third anniversary of January 6th this week. They walked us through some new evidence that they were disclosing, and some new video, and also where they're at with some of the prosecutions that are happening. I want to play a particular clip right off the bat that I thought was interesting, discussing the Proud Boys. So let's go ahead and play this DOJ clip, press conference clip, and then we'll talk about it.
On January 6, 2021, it was used as shorthand for revolution, this time against a government formed under the democratic system created by the Founding Fathers. Once they arrived at the Capitol, they walked around it, giving them an opportunity to probe its defenses. The march revealed that the grounds surrounding the Capitol had been blocked off with bike racks and snow fencing, and that these bike racks and fences had signs on them warning the general public that they were not allowed to enter. The grounds were restricted because of the certification proceeding that was to take place that day, and the people who would be on the grounds for it, including the then Vice President. The outer perimeter formed by these racks and fences is called the restricted perimeter. One of the areas the Proud Boys passed as they marched around the Capitol was the Peace Circle. What they saw when they passed shortly after 11:20 a.m. was a single officer guarding this major entry point to the Capitol grounds. As they passed, the Proud Boys rallied their men, again invoking 1776.
You haven't noticed, real men are here. We know what the oath is toward the Constitution of the United States against foreign enemies and domestic. Let us remind those who have forgotten what that means.
Thank our mayor president for
The Proud Boys did not stop when they saw this minimally guarded entrance point. Instead, they continued to march around the Capitol. The Proud Boys returned to the Peace Circle at 12:50 p.m., minutes before the certification proceeding was scheduled to start. Consistent with their discussions in private encrypted messages, they riled up the small crowd gathered near the Capitol, normies, as they called them, and used them as force multipliers to overpower the hopelessly outnumbered officers guarding the Capitol and the people who worked there. Days after the attack, a member of the Proud Boys leadership, Joe Biggs, brazenly explained the plan on a podcast, bragging that when the number of people trying to take a building dramatically outnumber the people protecting it, the building will be taken. Law enforcement found this recording in a file entitled Civil War on a device belonging to Mr. Biggs.
When you're holding a position like a fort and you're being overrun, if there's 3 of you or 4 of you and you're outnumbered 100 to 1, are you going to sit there and just go, I'm holding the door? No, you're just going to get your ass beat. That's already gone. If that many people show up to your house, there's nothing you can do about it.
The straightforward plan was made all the more likely to succeed by 2 events that occurred around the time that the Proud Boys walked back toward the Peace Circle. Explosive devices were found outside the DNC's and RNC's headquarters, and there were, what turned out to be false, reports of an explosion at the Capitol South Metro Station. Capitol Police officers responded to these other locations, further depleting the already too few officers outside the Capitol. Moments before the Proud Boys arrived at the Peace Circle, this is what the crowd just outside the restricted area looked like. This was mere minutes before the certification was scheduled to start. These people were just milling about and not making any effort to illegally enter the restricted area before the Proud Boys harnessed the anger that was swirling around the crowd amassed outside the Capitol. Within moments of arriving at the Peace Circle, the Proud Boys were able to amplify and channel that rage.
We're
Despite being newly formed and relatively few in number, the mob quickly and brutally overwhelmed the dozen or so officers guarding this first fence line.
Okay, so I want to talk about a couple of things here. So the implication is basically that the Proud Boys were doing recon by walking around the Capitol looking for the weakest points where they could make an entrance. At least that's the implication I got from what this DOJ spokesperson is saying, that they picked that one point because there weren't a lot of officers there. Obviously, there wasn't. It was easy to access. And then there's the implication of this idea of force multipliers, meaning that you had a group there, a large enough group there, but they were peaceful. They were just there to have their peaceful protest, but that Biggs and Nordine came in there and riled them up intentionally, got their juices going, and then directed their anger in a certain direction. What are your thoughts on that, Eric?
Yeah, exactly. And the other big thing I take away from that too is that how these, like, I don't remember if he said exactly when that Joe Biggs recorded that, but this was planned in the open. This guy's literally on a live stream, and some of people in our national security apparatus have the gall to say that I didn't know what was going to happen, or like it's actually like mind-boggling, and
Yeah,
it never
it is.
should have happened. Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. I remember there being, I think it was called War Pigs. You're making me think way back into the cobwebs, and I couldn't even get Levai correct, and I've known you for years.
No,
Bear with me here, but I believe
we're still friends.
Yeah, I believe it was War Pigs. There was a Telegram channel, and they did regular live streams in there. Tario, Nordine. Yeah. They were hosting things where they were openly discussing this idea of insurrection. I thought the week before January 6th, I was down in Huntington Beach. Hofstadter, who is one of the Oath Keepers that is going to be in prison for many, many years, he was there present. He gave a speech that was much the same way. I mean, it was so scary I had to leave. Just didn't feel safe. So yeah, I think that they were openly sort of planning it. But at the same time, I think it was sort of hard to digest that was where they were actually headed. Like, oftentimes you hear people use a sort of rhetoric, like burn it down, like we've got to, blah, blah, blah. Did they actually mean that? Well, I think, yes, they did. The second part that I want to point out is that they constantly use a particular kind of language, our house, our capital. They don't mean our as a collective American public our. They use it to mean only people that agree with them, right?
Right.
So it's not, and the whole 1776 thing is they do believe, I think they believe this with their whole hearts, that they are fighting for American values, civil liberties, all of these things that were created by our founding fathers. But the reality is that they're not. They're doing the opposite, right? They want to just have it their way. And, they lost an election. They can't accept the results of that. And so this is where we're at. But these individuals got really riled up, obviously. We saw what happened in the tunnel. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, someone asked me about that a while ago, who's like not as into politics, but, knows what's going on in the news. And they said, and they're not involved in this kind of work. It's just a neighbor. And they were like, so what were they there to do? And I told them the truth. I was like, they were there to kill everyone. They were there to kill everyone.
That brings us, that's the perfect opening for my next segment, actually. This is a segment that the DOJ spokesman discussed as far as what kind of weapons were present at the Capitol that day. Let's play that clip.
Let's pause for a moment and talk about the weapons that the crowd possessed and the weapons that they used on January 6th, 2021. We will never know all the weapons that were on the Capitol grounds that day because very few in the mob were actually arrested on January 6th. There was not enough law enforcement to defend the Capitol and the people in it, let alone to arrest the thousands of people who illegally entered Capitol grounds. In those limited incidents where the police did briefly detain someone, they quickly realized that the situation was so dangerous that they could not safely process the arrest and often had to let the person they detained go. And sometimes these people rejoined the advancing mob. Despite the fact that almost none of the members of the mob were searched on January 6, 2021, we have, through thorough investigation, established beyond a reasonable doubt that scores of those present were armed. The evidence has established the following weapons were present at the Capitol on the grounds: firearms, OC spray, tasers, edged weapons, including a sword, axes, hatchets, and knives, makeshift weapons, including destroyed office furniture, baseball bats, a hockey stick, flagpoles, and knuckle gloves. And finally, police equipment, some of which they stole from officers, others they brought with them because they were law enforcement officers themselves.
Absolutely
That
chilling.
last part. What about the guy who wore his DEA badge and he's like, yeah, pretty amazing.
Absolutely chilling. So a lot of them law enforcement because they're law enforcement themselves. I think that is an aspect of January 6th that does not get discussed enough. I also want to point out one of the things he says is that there wasn't simply enough law enforcement there to handle what was happening, to make arrests, to keep arrests. I think that is obviously true. We've seen enough of this footage to recognize that. So my question is this: why wasn't there more law enforcement present? You mentioned earlier that how did they knew it was happening? How did they not know it was happening? We all could see them talking out loud about this, right? I tend to believe that it's because there's a right-wing bias in law enforcement, and no part of the Capitol Police's brains were thinking that this was going to happen, because it's always Antifa or BLM that riots or does these things. What are your thoughts on that?
There's no question about it. I mean, there's absolutely no question about it. And obviously, I wouldn't be the first person to bring this up, but had that been a Black Lives Matter protest, I mean, it's hard to even think about what the response would have been, and I don't want to think about it. Law enforcement, or just there's, don't get me wrong, there's, like, on an individual basis, there's people who heroically, before this happened, like analysts and stuff, try to do the right thing, try to tell people what's happening. There's no question, though, that in general, our institutions swing far right. They do. And look at what happened because of that.
Yeah, wildly, and then you have guys like Mike German, who is an ex-FBI agent. He talks a lot about this, how that most domestic terrorism, if not all, I mean, pretty much all, is committed by right-wing extremists, whether they're white supremacist, neo-Nazi types, or other individuals like anti-government, So, and he's right on that. We have a documented history of this. But apparently, I think it took something as large as January 6th to happen for more people to really understand that. And wildly, this isn't the first time we've been here. You can go back to, World War II era, right before, things got really bad over there and we entered the war. We had a bludgeoning sort of fascist movement growing in the United States that was killed off by the government. And that doesn't get discussed a lot either. So yeah, it's definitely part of the conversation. What other things would you add about this that you think are important?
I guess the main thing, and I wrote a piece about this a while ago with Jared Hull, and I wrote it together, and it was about the consequences. That's what the whole thing's about, and that's how you prevent another January 6th, or at least part of it, which is clearly not happening. I just read an article, I think it was in the Intercept, that across the board, judges are handing down lighter sentences than what the prosecution is the government's asking for. And it doesn't matter, by the way. Interestingly, they looked into who appointed the judge, and it didn't Like it didn't matter if it was Trump or Obama or whoever.
Right.
So how did, you and I covered a lot on the ground prior to this, right, in California. How did these people, like you've seen these people on the ground, have you seen them literally transform and become radicalized? Like you could probably picture one person in your mind. They looked normal maybe for a bit, right? Over
DJ
time.
Rodriguez.
Right. DJ Rodriguez. Right.
I never saw him being a super violent guy. I have to be honest with you. There were other individuals that we would see on the regular that I thought were more prone to that behavior. I was quite shocked when it turned out that he was the guy that tased a cop in the neck. I was like,
yeah. And he'll be in jail till I think 2031, because I just happened to look at that the other day. And yeah, where did they get the idea that they could do this? It happened over time. It wasn't like right away.
yeah, it wasn't overnight. I agree with you. Getting sucked down a radicalized tunnel, whatever you want to call this, it requires time. It requires hearing things over and over again in an echo chamber, and then having those things ratchet up to the next level once you accept them at a certain level. The right wing talks about moving the Overton window. This is part of what they're talking about. And I could say without equivocation, they have succeeded on that. I don't think that's up for debate. The window has absolutely expanded in the country of what is acceptable speech at this point. So for them, that's a win. Whether or not the alt-right is destroyed or fallen apart or is splintered, whatever you want to say about that, I think that's definitely true. John is saying mob mentality took over. I think that is true too. I don't think everybody in that mob was part of the insurrection, or intended to be at least. I think they got caught up in the moment. But part of being caught up in the moment also is what we're discussing as far as what their beliefs are. They believe that Trump won the election, even though that is verifiably false. I mean, even Trump's people are saying, yeah, we know he didn't win. I mean, but that doesn't matter, right? They're very animated and motivated by that belief, and it's part of the conversation, I think. So what were some of your takeaways that you and Gerald Holt came to? Because I think that is part of the conversation. Are we looking down the tunnel of a worse January 6th, whether Trump wins or not, right? I think you've got two scenarios here, one in which he wins and people get wild, one in which he loses and people get wild. But what were some of your takeaways?
I mean, I think in that piece, I think the big takeaway was just that accountability was the answer, which I think was almost the title of the piece. Like that's the whole thing. And that's
accountability as far as holding the Capitol insurrections accountable?
Across the board, like whether we're talking about the people at the top, like a Trump, or none of the funders, the real players in this, which is what I'm interested in as a reporter, and I'm sure you are too. None of them have really been held accountable. So it's the people like the DJ Rodriguez who are sitting in prison. And it would be nice if they understand that. That'd be the first step towards, I think, de-radicalization. Like, hey, do you enjoy spending 15 years in prison? This guy's on a golf course. Like,
I think you're right on that. That is worthwhile conversation. I don't think all of these people are evil, terrible Nazis that, are looking at, overturning the government and establishing a white nationalist state. Some of them absolutely are. However, not all of them.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. Not all of them. So yeah, point taken.
So let me ask you this. The dark money that's funding a lot of this, I think that has roots in the Tea Party. We saw, with the Koch brothers, for example, funding Tea Party events and whatnot, because they wanted to have that sort of destabilization out there so they could extract more wealth. I think that that's absolutely true. And I think that's true a lot of the MAGA crowd. Are there any particular deep pocket funders that are, you think are particularly terrible?
Wow, that's how much time do you have, Tina?
About 45 minutes. No.
Yeah, no, yeah. When John finally gets here, then he given the heroic nature of that footage, I hope he gets to. I would love to hear whatever thoughts he has. I did find a CNN interview. I just happened to doing a little research, and I saw he did that interview with Pamela Brown. It must have been right after it happened, and you could really hear it in his voice.
Yeah.
I don't know, Leonard Leo. I mean, I don't mean necessarily just with the Capitol, but just these people who hold the actual power in this country. I know that in terms of the Capitol, the Publix, the heiress to that fortune, Julie, I forget her last name. She was, she put a lot of money into it. But
Jeannie
I don't know,
Thomas, Leonard Leo. Yeah, I think you're right about Leonard Leo.
Oh, yeah, and I don't know.
I'm
It's
putting
kind
you
of
on
been a
the
long
spot.
day, but no, it's okay. There were the other two, but we can
We can go
we'll
back to
reconvene
that.
on that moment. There's a
All
lot
right,
of
fair.
people. Yeah.
All right, so I want to
Oh,
turn now.
Amy Kramer. Sorry,
Oh,
Amy Kramer and her daughter, who are yeah, those two. But we'll talk about that later.
Okay, I want to turn now to some lengthy body cam footage. Let me also mention this: if anybody's interested in watching the entire DOJ press conference, it's on the District 34 channel from start to finish. If you want to watch that. There is also the full 2.5 hour of this body cam I'm about to delve into with Eric here. It's on. So if you want to watch the stuff from start to finish, it's uploaded there in full. So Colin, let's pull up this clip. So this comes from one of the officers and the body cam footage starts with him walking up to the Capitol. So he's outside of the Capitol. He's been called in. And I'm going to we took out clips of this. We're going to play it and go through it. But we're basically condensing 2.5 hours into, about 15 minutes. But I think a lot of this is worthy of seeing because it's pretty stunning. So let's just start with them pleading to the cops to join. So here you've got, and I think this probably, I wish John was here for this, but maybe John can chime in the chat. I believe that this was probably common that day where a lot of these folks are like, aren't you on our side? Let us into the building. Join us. We're fighting for freedom. We're fighting for the country, pleading with the cops.
You guys do nothing when they break windows. They loot. They do all kinds of stuff. You guys do nothing. But then patriots come to take our country back, and you guys stand in the way. All of you, we see you all of you are standing in the way. And you hear me. You know what I'm saying is right. This ain't about Trump. This is about America. This is about freedom. And when you lose it, you don't get it back. Now there's one that's turned to the right side. There's one. Why don't you? You're looking at me. Looking. Come on. Do the right thing. Do the right thing. Make your kids.
Okay, so what's interesting to me about this is first they're starting with a theme you hear often. You do nothing about BLM or Antifa, which is completely not true. The police are much harder on BLM and Antifa than they ever are on Trump supporters. I think it's wild that these folks believe that is not true. That is verifiably true. So that's point one. And then now he's saying you're standing in our way. Why are you standing in our way? We're here fighting not just for Trump, but for America, right? So some of this rhetoric that he's using. What do you think about that?
My opinion on these people, which is a little bit, I think, different than others, is that I think that most of them are liars. I think that a much larger amount of them than is publicly acknowledged knew that Donald Trump lost. They just didn't care. And my feeling is that not to go back to what we talked about, but the consequences is really what matters. And because they keep getting this unusual amount of, I guess, I don't know, attention, or like they need to be held accountable. They need to go to jail for what they did and serve a. I'm no great supporter of like the jail system or whatever, but there has to be some sort of consequence. I mean, and look at them out there. Look at that mob.
Yeah.
So
I've said this before. I'll say it again. If that actually had been BLM or Antifa, then they would have been using live rounds much earlier, and there would have been more cops there. I don't think that's a crazy statement. I just don't.
Yeah. They have to make something up, because it's like dragging other people down in the mud with you, right? So they, rather than just admit the truth and that, you know, they were there to kill a lot of people, and they have to talk about Black Lives Matter or Antifa.
You know, people forget too, Tario had put out this thing right before instructing the Proud Boys to dress like Antifa, I mean, he actually said this, you know, I think that's part of the conversation, right? And because of that, you had, you know, a lot of Trump people saying, well, it was Antifa that started the riot. We didn't do it. It wasn't Trump people, right? So that's all part of the conversation, I think. Again, is it the force multipliers, right? Are these guys knowingly manipulating the rest of the crowd into doing these things? And I think you make an interesting point on the fact that a lot of them are lying and that they do know. I don't think that's crazy at all. I think that might be true.
Yeah. I to be honest with you, I didn't even remember that Tario said that. I'm not surprised. I mean, again, as you know, as Daryl Lamont Jenkins, one of the great activists, says, you know, Proud Boys lie. They lie about everything. So
very true. And Daryl would know. We've had Daryl on the show. He's great. All right, let's continue on with the rest of this. So you can see that there's some argumentation, some jaw jacking going on with the cops here, but now we're going to get into where things really heat up.
Yeah.
Let's pause there for a second. I don't know who this guy is on the ground. I was hoping John maybe had an eyeball on that when this happened, but I don't know if he had been, was it tear gas or maybe it was friendly fire from the guys he was with, but this guy is on the ground in this footage. I have no idea who he is or what happened to him. I thought it was kind of weird. John, if you know, drop something in the chat. All right, let's carry on.
You fucking dead! Shame on you! Shame on you! Fuck you, asshole! Fuck you! Back up! Breaking your own!
All right, let's pause there.
Just a great bunch of, just an ordinary bunch of people. Just a great bunch of normal, totally normal people doing regular things. Sorry.
You know, you're breaking your oath, right? This guy's saying you're breaking your oath. He's saying that to the cops, right? As he's throwing things at them. You know, this guy in the chat, Della Sendero, he's making a point. He's like, they are in one way, they're revolting against the ruling class, maybe for reasons they don't understand. I think you're right on that. Absolutely. I think fascism always increases in times of income inequality. We have very severe income inequality in the country right now. It's been growing for quite a while. And they don't know who to be angry at. So, they knew that they didn't like Hillary Clinton and that she was friends with banksters and that she was probably not going to correct the income inequality. So they weren't going to vote for her. We see a fair amount of voters that supported Obama, that supported Bernie Sanders, that turned around and voted for Trump. He gave out a lot of populist speeches where he said, "I feel your pain. I understand that there's income inequality. We're gonna hold the elites accountable. We're going to drain the swamp. We're going to do something about corporate lobbyists." Now, of course, all of that was untrue, and he did the opposite. But at the same time, I think people are really hurting in the country, and this is sort of a natural consequence of that.
I would say, just to maybe just a different perspective. Maybe I'm not. What do they call it? I'm not like the contrarian guy, but many of these people, I don't have an exact number, but the truth is many of these people are better off than the average American, and they had the time and finances to come out on a Tuesday.
That's also true.
And the only thing I would say to just anybody else is that, in effect, they were actually supporting oligarchs. They came out for Donald Trump, a criminal.
Yeah.
And so, I would kind of.
I think both of those things are true, Eric. I think what you're saying is also true. No group is monolithic, of course. I do think that some of this rage is coming from working class individuals that are not getting a fair shake. I think that's absolutely 100% true. But I also think there are those that are very well off and are using that anger and they're manipulating those individuals to get what they want as well. I think both things are true. Yes.
I think, I would just say that I think this was my opinion is that this is the ruling class trying to maintain power when they lost.
Yeah,
So I appreciate the other, perspective.
No, I agree. I think the overall version narrative is that, but I do think a lot of the anger we saw that day and we continue to see is coming from individuals that are not. I mean, we've seen them even here in Los Angeles. We have guys that are out there on that Trump rally line still that are living in their cars. I have 3 of them in my head right now that I know for a fact live in their cars. They're not well off. Several Proud Boys that you and I both know, not well off. Some of them are unemployed. So I think it's both things.
Wow. But you mean you can't get a job when you're, sorry to interrupt you. It's hard to get a job when you're part of a violent neo-fascist street gang?
Yeah, the unintended consequences, right?
It is.
Anyway, I think it's something we need to look at in the country. I do think that you're right. I mean, wealthy people know that if there is an unstabilized nature of things, in the country, that people don't have public trust in institutions that need public trust to function, that they can use that to their advantage, to change laws, to extract wealth, to maintain control at all costs. So I think that is true.
Yeah. These people were just adamant. They were acting as foot soldiers for Trump and all these rich people, or like a Roger Stone or whatever, who wouldn't. Right. By the way, they wouldn't ever be caught. I'm about to say caught dead, but like literally, you notice they don't get their hands dirty, right?
No, right.
You ever see them in a mob? No.
Not
once.
No, they'll egg the mob on from a distance,
right.
and
then they'll just stand back.
Right? Yeah, I don't disagree. As the world burns, I agree with you, Eric. I think that's true.
Yeah,
all right, let's carry on with this crazy body cam footage. It gets crazier.
Fucking traitor!
We don't want to fight you, okay? Just let us in. We don't want to fight you. We won't hurt anybody. Just let us in. Really, we don't want to fight you.
let's pause there for a second, Colin.
Yeah.
So they're now screaming traitors at the cops. The cops are traitors because they're not letting them through the tunnel. I also want to point out, this is the tunnel that John's footage is from, by the way, the same tunnel. This was the one point in the Capitol where they never actually got through, right? So by this time of day, you had windows broken on the other sections, and people were entering the Capitol elsewhere. I don't know. I'd be curious to know if these police officers knew that was the case. I don't think that they did, given the fact that they went out of their way to hold the line here, which is like crazy, right? Where their cops had just let them in at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, like, because I feel like it isn't said enough. I mean, I know it's said, but like, this is a terrorist attack. Like, it's it's the definition of terrorism.
I
They
agree.
use violence, yeah. And I just feel like that even the way we use words as journalists, like, I'm not talking about you and I right now, but just in general, like, I've had these battles before where it's like the Capitol riot, the Capitol insurrection. It's like, okay, that's, in journalism, that there's a phrase, defensive writing, which is like using the best word you can, right? It's terrorism. Like,
Yeah, can I point something out too? This is something that blows my mind. Currently in San Diego, there's a case against some defendants that the DA down there, as you know, is calling Antifa, and she's looking for longer charges from those individuals than any of these January 6ers will ever get. I want to point that out.
Yep.
And the second example, I think, is also Cop City in Atlanta. Here you have situations where you had folks like just march with a banner, and they're being held as domestic terrorists and looking at really long charges as well, longer than what these J6ers are going to get. And I do think there's a distinction to be made between these two groups. One group clearly wanted to like upend our election. Right. There was a reason they were trying to get into that chamber, right?
Yeah.
There was a reason they were going after Mike Pence, right? I mean, if folks aren't really clear on this by now, I don't know what to say. I think it's pretty obvious what was happening here. Now, meanwhile, what happened in San Diego, it was a counter protest against these same January 6ers, right? It was a counter protest where people came out just to say, no, it's not okay that you guys tried to overturn our election. We're not going to accept that. And in that particular case, we've covered it on the show. You had Trump supporters attack counter protesters, physically harm them, and they're not facing the same charges or consequences. In fact, the DA down there thinks some of them are suitable victims and witnesses, right? So it's just mind-numbing to me that this is the state of things in the country. And, a lot of it has to do, in my opinion, of the fact that a lot of these Trump supporters, the DA in San Diego is clearly a Trump supporter. They don't see the world through a glass in which law should be applied universally. They never have, right? There's a reason they want to end the FBI now. There's a reason they want to, quote unquote, reform the DOJ. It's not because they see a problem there. It's not like, if you hear criminal folks that want to do something about the criminal justice system, what they want to fix is they want laws to be applied universally, right? Everybody gets charged with the same thing, where there's no racial bias, there's no political bias, things of this nature, right? Which is how it should be. Laws are useless unless they're applied universally. These right-wingers, that's not what they're asking for. What they want is like what I dub Pinochet's army, right? They want a law enforcement agency that does their bidding.
Yeah.
And that's not the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Back the Blues seemed to have kind of it was pretty ironic, right? I mean, there wasn't too much of that on January 6th. Though I guarantee you a lot of those people still in their mind's eye probably think of themselves as
100%
that type of person.
I agree.
So,
I mean, DJ Rodriguez was an absolute Back the Blue guy. I have video of DJ in Beverly Hills with a Back the Blue flag, and yet here he is January 6th tasing a cop in the neck. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
anyway.
Michael Fanone, right? I mean, it's yeah. Well,
again, outside of that same tunnel that we're looking at right now. That is this particular tunnel was very violent on January 6th.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to the footage, and I'm wondering if John's maybe going to be able to join us soon, hopefully. But let's go back to the body cam and finish looking through that.
back, step back, man. Step back, step back. Step back.
This is not the way we want it. This is not the way we want it. When your officers give you an order, your duty is to not obey. You are here to defend us, not them. I was in the military, I served, and if somebody gave me an order to shoot upon my people, would you do it? No! Let us in our houses, let us have our talk with them. They're stealing our country. If they take it, we're all living in the same household. We're all going to live under the same social shitholes that they're trying to push upon us. We all saw the evidence of them stealing.
All right, let's pause there. Let's pause there, mainly because John is finally here.
I'm here. I'm at the Capitol. I'm ready.
All right, catch us up. We played some of your footage at the start of the show. We're going through some of this body cam. This is the same tunnel that you were in with all that violence going on. The last woman we were just listening to was like
violence. What violence? What are you talking about?
What violence?
Yeah, tourists, as they say.
They were just being tourists, right? She's saying you're here to protect us, not them. Some of the crazy rhetoric. Walk us through some stuff, memories you have of that day, and how you feel about it now, 3 years on.
I don't know. That day, I really didn't know what I was involved in or what I was, covering. But yeah, just the violence of it. I've never seen so much violence. And, it was just like a medieval battle, using whatever weapons they could find on the ground, fire extinguishers, the barricades, the police shields. I never seen anything like that, and I didn't think they would get away with that. But then again, they did.
They did. Go ahead, Eric.
No.
And Eric, you were definitely right about what you said before. It was it was terrorist. It was terrorism, but also, like you said, like a lot of people did not. A lot of people got caught up in that mob mentality, and a lot of people didn't know what they were involved in. They just, they got the adrenaline got to them, and they just got caught up in the moment. It was like they were drunk. Like when you go out drinking one night and then you go back home, and the next morning you wake up like, what the fuck happened? Like that's why I feel like
I just tried to overthrow
for a lot of people.
I just did a coup.
I just did a coup.
Yeah,
Oops.
right, exactly.
Where am I?
And we filmed it.
I don't know.
Wait,
Like-
whoopsie.
Yeah, it's like a really bad at The Hangover, but I did a coup instead. Yeah. John,
So
that's great footage. I mean, thanks for taking that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you
What was that?
mentioned that they were picking up just makeshift weapons. You mentioned a fire extinguisher, obviously the police shells we've seen. So these are obviously, some of these folks didn't come armed. There were people there that did come armed, but some of them were just like, oh no, I'm going to pick this up and join the attack kind of a
Against the police. Right. Yeah, that's exactly what they did. But
That's
like I said,
crazy.
like you said, a lot of people were armed. They had firearms, baseball bats,
100%.
tasers, bear spray, flag poles that were made as weapons. But these people went there to fight Antifa. Like the buildup was to battle Antifa. Because leading up to January 6th, every other rally, it was November, December, and then January 6th. Every night it was a battle between them and Antifa.
Right.
And that's who they went there. That's why they were dressed up like that. Like they were dressed ready for war with Antifa, but then they went to war with the police officers who had no idea what the fuck was happening.
John, I remember also in your footage and other people's footage, one of the first things I noticed was a lot of the Proud Boys that I recognized had orange tape on them, whether it was orange tape around their arms, on the back of their helmets. One of them,
And the orange hats.
And the orange hats. Yeah, some of them had orange beanies. Like I still don't know what the significance of that was, but I did notice that. So obviously there was more to this story that we might not ever know. I mean, maybe it'll eventually come out, but definitely part of the conversation. And it was obviously planned for those guys.
Yeah, and like you said, they were told to dress to look like Antifa. And that's why I think a lot of people were blaming it on Antifa. Usually the Proud Boys would dress in their black and yellow uniforms, and they would all look the same. It would be like a team thing. But that day they all dressed in black and stuff that didn't look like Proud Boys. So I didn't recognize any of them until you pointed it out with the orange hats.
Yeah,
and then I look back on my footage. I'm like, oh shit, they're all wearing these orange hats that you normally wear when you go hunting.
Right. Orange hats. And if they didn't have orange hats, they put tape around their arm. There was one of them, and I can't remember who it is right now, who had on his backpack, he had like 5 or 6 rolls of orange tape connected to the back of his backpack. And I'm like, there's the orange tape, Proud Boy. I can't remember who it was now, but yeah, they had to identify themselves some way, I suppose. Do you think, John, let me ask you this, because part of the conversation Eric and I are having is centered upon, are we looking at a worse 1/6 and that January 6th where it's repeated again, whether Trump wins or loses? I think part of Eric's point is that there hasn't been enough accountability for some of the top line. That might be changing. Obviously, right. Trump has been charged with things now. In Georgia, you've had several of his team, negotiating plea deals and whatnot. So what are your thoughts on all that?
Right. I think what Eric said is that, what did you say before? Take Trump out of the equation. America is still, this country is still falling apart, regardless of who it is. So you take Trump out of the equation and these people are still going to be upset. And you could arrest all the people that were there on January 6th. But if you don't arrest arrest the top people, the people, Eric, like you said, they were their foot soldiers. That's who they were, for the top people, Roger Stone, Trump, even like Alex Jones, Owen Schroyer, all those people, they built this up and they say this is their war, this is their revolution. And, you take Trump out of it, it's going to happen again, regardless, because nothing's getting better in this country.
I don't disagree. I think you're right on that. Trump is a symptom of the problem. He's not the problem that's causing all these other problems. All right, let's finish with the rest of this body cam footage, and then we're going to move on and talk about Freedom Corner.
Is he a symptom, or I'll ask after?
Okay.
Come on! Bring it on! Come on! Come on! We the people! We the people! You are the people! Your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your uncle, your grandpa, and your grandmother. They're all out here. Come on! Come on! Come on! Attack your family! You swore an oath! You swore an oath! Defend the Constitution! else will decide as we did.
Everybody, we have to stop! We have to stop! We have to stop! We have to stop! We have to stop!
These enemies are the best influence for the road.
Come on! We
Come on,
have to
guys.
So one of the most chilling things in that entire footage is when that guy says to the cops, "You're going to die tonight." I don't know about you guys. We've all been out there. We've been covering protests for years and years and years. I have never seen anybody from BLM or Antifa do such a thing or behave this way. Have you?
Yeah, no.
A lot of anger.
No,
but
not
I mean,
like
I'm-
that.
Not like that, right? They're when they get
And
angry,
that's
and they
worse.
do.
And that's serious. Like in that moment, you know, those cops were fighting for their lives.
I
You know,
think so.
if things could have been a whole lot worse.
Yeah.
And that's a serious, serious thing.
Yeah.
I agree. In your footage, John, there's you see Gina at the very end, and she turns to David Dempsey. Both of them are facing charges, obviously, and they have a little conversation. I can't really hear what they're saying, but in somebody else's footage, Gina was over to your right when they broke that window open and they started going into the window there. At one point in that other footage, the guy standing next to her actually says, and I don't think this gets discussed enough either, actually says, I should have pulled it for this. I'm just thinking about it now, though. If you have weapons, now is your time to come forward. And he says it 2 or 3 times in a couple of different ways. And when I first saw that footage, I'm like, what the fuck did I just hear? Rewind. I'm like, wow, yeah, this guy's literally saying, if you have weapons, now's the time to come forward. And this was before.
Yeah.
This is early on, before there was a discussion of this being a planned coup or whatever you want to call it. So Freedom Corner. Let's turn now to Freedom Corner, because this is an ongoing thing in Washington, D.C., and I don't think a lot of people know about it. So a lot of the J6 family members, J6 supporters, whatnot, including, I think, Ashley Babbitt's mother, they've been perpetually camped out at a corner across from the federal detention center now, almost every day, or every day actually, since the start of all of this a couple of years ago. And they're there now probably as we speak. What is some background, Eric? I know you've done a lot of research on this, much more at least than I have. What is some of the background information you can share with us on the Freedom Corner?
Yeah, definitely. And I was going to say, as well, I was going to commend John for the footage just from that day. I hope we get to, I'd love to come back on. Maybe we could even all talk about this again. I mean, not that we want to, but it'd be really interesting because I know you had some travel. You were, I know John had some travel issues, so he wasn't able to be here at the beginning, but I'd like to talk more. Yeah, Freedom Corner. So a couple months ago, how much time do we have left? Because I don't want to go.
No, go ahead. We about a half hour.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So like, a couple months ago, I was just forget what happened. So I started observing this live stream, which is called Freedom Corner. There's a group of researchers who I know they're all watching right now because I was promoting it on my Twitter. And so basically it's a nightly whatever you would call it, vigil protest. It's outside the DC jail where many indicted people who were involved in January 6th who are being held, they haven't been tried yet, so they're entitled to that presumption of innocence. But so that they're in the jail before they go to prison if they're convicted, right? So it's just like the jail. So there's a vigil outside the jail, which is made up of some family members like Ashley Babbitt's mother, some convicted Capitol rioters, white supremacists. There's actually been unindicted Capitol, like literally people who are basically at large, who are just walking around there, which is insane to me. Yeah. Which that's another conversation about when we talk about accountability. Who else would think that they could do that? Would you do that if you were, like, no, you'd probably be somewhere
far
else.
away from there.
Right. No,
I'd be in Mexico drinking margaritas.
Yeah. Some of them go to hearings, like they go to because they're on you'll see that you turn on the TV, they're sitting behind so-and-so at some hearing. You're like, bro, are you serious? Like, so I started watching this. It's truly, honestly disgusting. It started to wear on me a little bit, as this work does. There's open anti-Semitism, racism that these people say. They get in conflicts with, I know we talked about some clips. They get in conflicts with people in the neighborhood. I don't think they have a permit to be there. It's absolutely disgusting, frankly, that they're celebrating basically a coup, and that, yes, you have the right to be out here, and I value our First Amendment. However, people in the neighborhood are being harassed. It's absolutely disgusting.
In fact, so John, you've seen this too, right?
I actually, sorry, what's that?
I said, John, you've seen this too, right?
I've been there. I went there once a couple of months ago, and I was outside. I was filming. So what they do is they have the people who are in that jail. They call one of their phones, and they talk about what they're going through, and how they're feeling, and the state of like what's going on in politics and stuff like that. So when I was there, they had a couple people call, like Jessica Watkins, one of the oath keepers. A couple other people who are in that jail, they called in, and they put them on a loudspeaker, and the people, everybody around them can hear. They order food comes, and then they sing some patriotic songs and whatever. But it's it is what it is. But yeah, I've been there.
Let's play Colin, let's play the first clip that Eric sent us.
So, with that being said, another thing happened. I didn't even want to bring it up, but I will, because I was asked to. So Scooter and Taki, Brian Jackson, and Andrew Taki got removed from the pod a few days ago because of a quote-unquote investigation. They said that, these people said that, so I've been told, it's been because Scooter was, recruiting white supremacists, whatever. Scooter's already, I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but it's complete BS, right? Scooter has already talked in length about time in Texas prison, everything else. I've already talked in length about how some things need to be just left in the, in here. This isn't Big Brother, this isn't, and I understand that some people always want to make the news. Listen, McBride, the one thing that McBride did was he put me in the news a lot, put me in the paper a lot. Now that did nothing but piss off my judge. He should have been writing, instead of talking to the newspapers, he should have been talking to my judge and filing motions. We're looking at my discovery. But, but everyone, there's people here who want to be the next best thing, or are looking for jobs in media outside of here.
You have 1 minute remaining.
And they're lying. They want to be the next best thing, and they lie. Whether you get electrocuted from a light switch in the shower, or which probably light switch doesn't belong there, but or you have feces, coming up over the sink. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. You overflow the toilet, the toilet.
Okay, walk us through that, Eric. That's one of the Oath Keepers.
I actually, on that one, so what he's saying was, I forget who's on the phone there, and he's rambling a lot, but basically what he's saying is, there's a guy named Brian Jackson who's in the jail, who participated in the attack, who is a white supremacist, who's a member of a group called, I think, the White Knights. And basically what the guy on the phone is saying is that he was organizing white supremacist activity. These guys are, just to emphasize too, these guys are all grouped together in what they call the Patriot Pod. So it's not right. It's not bad enough that they did what they did, but the jail has decided to, and I'm not an expert in the penal system, but they basically put them all together. so they can continue radicalizing each other, which is what he's
Yeah.
alleging there, which is horrible.
He's probably not wrong.
I doubt it. Yeah, he's like, what? Where would he's like the guy that you're talking about, Brian Jackson, has giant swastikas like on his.
No,
he's got
I
one
know
on his-
exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah,
He's absolutely a neo-Nazi. That's not up for debate.
Yeah.
There's another guy, Timothy Louis Hale Cusinelli,
Oh,
who
yeah.
I know is being held there in the Patriot Pod. Also a white supremacist. He had a lot of anti-Semitic content on his Facebook. He was reprimanded by, I think was it the Marines he was in? He was in one of the armed services, but was investigated by them. They found photos of him dressed up like Hitler, all kinds of things. So I know he's part of that group as well. I want to sort of pose the question, though. When in the jail system, you have the Peckerwoods, Aryan Brothers. I mean, there's a system in place in the penal system where white supremacists hang out with each other, and if you're not a white supremacist when you enter, you could very well become one being in jail, just because of the way that stuff goes down. So this idea of grouping them together is probably not a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, these calls are wild. Like I know John's been out there. There's some that are, as a reporter, I do stick to the facts. So I could only say that some of the calls are unintelligible. I'm talking for 20 minutes. And so I wouldn't be able to say why that is, but just think in your own life, have you ever talked to someone on the phone for 30 minutes who made no sense? Sometimes there's something going on there. You know what I mean? And these guys are in jail.
Yeah,
So,
got you.
and I
All
know,
right, well,
yeah.
Should we play the next clip?
Yeah, there's some good ones.
In the shower, or which like or you have feces, coming up, or you're saying it doesn't happen. It didn't happen. He overflowed his toilet, he clogged the toilet. Okay, and because of that, there was no risk. It should have stayed here. It didn't. People got in the outside and started talking, and now 2 people got removed from our pod. They shouldn't have been removed. Plain and simple. So the warden is coming to speak to us on Wednesday. I'd like everyone, if we can, give a call, send a letter, something. We already have a whole plan. So, Scooter and Taki, we'll see you soon. God bless. All right, guys, listen, I love you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
I think I was just gonna say, like the confrontation on the sidewalk, I think is the next one.
Okay, should we? All right. Before we do that, I wanted to put this up. This is Timothy Louis Hale Cusinelli's DOJ in Statement of Facts indictment. I wanted to put
He
this
looks
up.
normal. What a normal looking individual.
This is one of the guys that has been fundraising. We're talking over $1 million now with somebody on the outside. I can't think of the nonprofit that they set up the name of it right now, but this is who this guy is.
Yeah. It's.
All right, let's go to the fight on the sidewalk. Oh wait, go ahead. What do you have?
No, I was saying he was going to work looking like that, as I recall. Like he was like literally like with the the whole thing.
Mustache.
I got nothing.
Yeah. It was.
All right, let's play the next one.
You owe her an apology. How dare you?
Maybe my firstborn child, you freaking asshole.
That's why we're out here.
You've been respectful to every police officer out here, and you get out there and say
You
something
don't
like
own
that.
that sidewalk.
I don't act like I own that
Yeah, you
sidewalk,
do.
but y'all are out
It's a
here
public
keeping us
sidewalk.
separated.
It's a public
Are you
sidewalk.
not here to keep the peace?
It's a public sidewalk.
Absolutely.
You don't have no business saying anything to anybody walking down that sidewalk. It's not your place.
No, but
It's a
it's
public sidewalk. You don't own
You
it.
didn't know while we're
See,
here.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, because you know about what? In your car watching
I don't know about that.
Yeah, you know about much. The fat
Child, 622.
Sergeant Childs, S622. You fat sloppy fuck. You're sloppy.
All right, let's go have our vigil. Let's go have our vigil. This is Ashley Day. Ashley Babbitt Day.
This is about families. This is about families.
Patriots!
We don't mess with
USA! USA!
Right.
Yep.
It's Patriot Freedom Project. Thank you so much. That is exactly what the nonprofit is that Timothy is co-helping with, whatever you want to say. And the criticism, I think, has been that he has been taking a lion's share of the funding coming in, that the money is not being distributed equally to all the J6 defendants, even though they are using all of their photos on their fundraising website. They have photos of people on there that have gotten not a single dime from this nonprofit. So anyway, but putting that aside, so is that Ashley Babbitt's mom that's arguing with the
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, John has been out there. Yeah, she's been arrested, I think, twice in conferences like that. In that instance. Oh, John, go ahead. Yeah.
No. Go ahead. I was just confirming that was her.
Yeah. But I mean, if you had anything to add, I know you've actually been out there.
No, I was trying to think of her name, but I can't think of her name right now.
I think it's Mickey Withoft, I think is her last name.
Yeah, Mickey.
So yeah, there was a confrontation between a woman who lives in the neighborhood, and that devolved into an argument with the police out there who, the officer was kind of like, from what I've seen most of the time, there's not much pushback, but he was basically like, hey, like, you don't own the sidewalk, which is true. I mean, and so they're calling him, it's pretty gross. I mean, that clip is, I think, more indicative of what I've been seeing out there. Is pretty gross.
Okay. I think there's 2 more clips, right?
If you can stand it, I think there's a few.
I can definitely stand it. All right, let's go to the next one, Colin.
Arrested and released.
Why are we here?
You guys have no clue. You attack anybody who comes around.
Ashley Babbitt! Ashley Babbitt! Ashley Babbitt!
Yes! This is not the
Babbitt! Ashley 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 Babbitt!
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the same night, but yeah, it's pretty amazing. That was a counter. I think that there's a counter protester is out there. That was his voice. I think he's called DOA, Defender of Ants. I believe.
Oh yeah, Defender of Ants. Okay, and Anarchy Princess. I think those are the 2 regular counter protesters that have been.
Anarchy Princess. I'm a huge fan. If she's watching, just a great,
I'll have to ask her to come on the show. Yeah, she's been out there a lot, almost every night, I think. I think there's one more. Is there one more, Colin? I love looking at John's ear.
2 more.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't hear you guys, so I'm...
Oh, is that what's happening? Okay, let's play the next clip.
Honestly, we are just sitting here waiting on time, and I have to say, any FBI person or DHS or some other shitbag that had anything to do with this, your days are numbered. Amen. You're gonna swing. You're gonna swing. You're gonna swing. That's it.
I caught some shit for that one, so I hope it doesn't roll your way. But yeah, absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Amazing stuff. But we were talking yesterday, this government and its arrogant corruption and its dismissal did not count on the spirit of the American people that will not go away, will not give up, will not sit down, and will not shut up until we get some answers.
I'm good, thanks.
Absolutely a we the people, be the people moment. It is the pressure that you continued to put on your congressional members and your local representatives. That's right. That's right. Amen, Patriots.
For the record, the term is traitor. Traitors are shot. They're executed.
That's right.
That is what happens to traitors.
That's right.
If I remember right, if you're in the military and you're a traitor, you're shot, and if you're a civilian, you're hung. So don't quote me on that one.
Yes, that's true.
But I believe...
Our last guy. Yeah, you know that. Yeah, oh, for goodness sakes. Yeah, we did just watch the Revolutionary. I watched the Revolutionary thing where they used to come out and shoot traitors right on the battlefield.
That's right.
Right in the snow.
Yeah, and I believe the Navy, I believe that they get hung in the Navy, and I believe the Army would shoot them.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Maybe get hung by the yard line.
Please, people, get involved in your politics. Get involved, become a vote watcher, a poll worker, get involved in your election. It is so important to get involved. Please.
I have no words for how insane that is. So they're just casually talking about hanging FBI agents.
Yeah, and I believe his name is Jeffrey Sable. He's in, just to emphasize for people watching, he's in jail saying that. He's calling in. Those calls are recorded. Have you ever in your life? Yeah, it is wild. And you were in the tunnel. You were.
So, and then he's also calling them traitors. What I still haven't gotten a straight answer from any one of these folks. Why are they traitors? Well, I mean, they're traitors because they believe that Trump actually lost the election. I mean, the delusion is so grand at this point.
Yeah. Well, yeah, traitors. I mean, when just to, I guess, not beat around the, just be upfront. When you're a straight up fascist, everybody is a traitor who's not, down with you, right? So that clip blows my mind. Like
that clip blows my mind. That's the worst one yet.
Yeah, everybody's a traitor, and they're the patriots.
Patriots. That's the other thing. So I hear patriot, and I just cringe. Like, because what I hear when you say patriot is domestic terrorist. I mean, Timothy McVeigh called himself a patriot. I mean, how long is it before one of these guys do something similar? I mean, the rhetoric is definitely there.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about consequences before. If this guy can say stuff like that in jail while under indictment, or I forget if he's been sentenced yet, we got a problem, a big problem.
I agree.
So,
our democracy is failing. What's left of it that's not part of the corporate oligarchy? I'm tabling that discussion for another day. I mean, obviously that's the case. I think we have one more clip.
Sounds good.
Good.
Fun fact is that the prosecutor's son puts his preferred pronouns on his LinkedIn account. Is that weird?
Yes.
So you got this guy, he's creating offspring that feel the need to assure people that he is a certain gender, when normally you could just look at a person and tell, but apparently he must be so effeminate or so like girly like that you have to let everyone know, no, he's a him, he. So it's really weird, really gross.
Eric, say hi to Chris Brow. He's in the channel.
Oh,
he's in our chat right now, losing his mind. Hi, Chris.
I was going to say on that last one. So I clipped that one, and I also want to commend the Freedom Corner researchers who clipped the other ones, and they're doing truly. I don't know them. I only know them by on Twitter. I don't know their names for the most part, but they're doing really important work. And thank you for doing that. So the last one I clipped, which is John Mellis, a convicted capital rioter. I think he was sentenced that day, and in that clip, he's talking about the son of the prosecutor who prosecuted him, which is like very concerning. Like, why is this guy looking at the social media of a son and that's why I clipped it and put it up. And he's in jail again, talking about this like on a recorded line. Like, I'm looking at the social media. Why is this guy looking at the social media of a family member of a prosecutor?
I mean, we can all connect the dots at this point.
I mean,
because they're a traitor, right? If you don't, this is the language that they use. The freedom in this country doesn't mean freedom for everybody. It's freedom for people that agree with me, that think like me, that are part of my little cult.
Yeah.
There's no universal belief in what freedom is at this point with these individuals. So if you're not on board with that messaging, you're a traitor. It's that simple, or you're Antifa, or whatever, their latest rhetoric is.
Yeah.
John, do you have thoughts on that?
It's just, I mean, I don't know. I just want to, I'll close it out. I'll close it out with, they're like, Tina, we've spoken about this before. They're pretty much all hypocrites. What they see as freedom fighting and being a patriot, they don't see that for anybody else. Those who go against them and you know,
I think that's true.
It's just hypocrisy. That's what it is.
I agree.
Yeah.
It is hypocrisy. You know, that's the interesting thing about the Constitution, folks. It applies to everybody universally and equally, not just people that agree with you. And at this point in time, I can say without equivocation, I only see the extreme right believing that freedom is something other than that. You know.
Yeah. Freedom is how they define it, I guess.
Let's I think you got to go, John. So before we go,
Yeah.
Let's go to our super chats. I got to put my glasses on for this because I'm getting older now. Let's put up some of the super chats and go through those with John before he leaves. And then Eric and I have one clip to play from LA we shot this week. All right, Nadia. Hey, Nadia, how are you? Thank you for the $10. Is it fair to say this was a theocratic coup attempt? The appeal to heaven flags are heavy dominist material. That is true. Shayon and Cindy Jacobs, both NAR apostles, and were more directly involved. I'll give you my opinion. I'm going to ask the other two for theirs. I would say yes. What's interesting to me about the appeal to heaven flag, this is actually a reference to John Locke, and it's very much misunderstood by the right wing at this point. John Locke was talking about it's an argument for democracy against the right to rule. Like if you're part of, a royal dynasty, right? The bloodline, I have a right to rule. I was born into this. It's an argument against that. It's making the ultimate appeal to heaven for democracy. But now it's sort of been adopted by this guy. I think Dutch Sheets was the original one, but they've used it to become some sort of symbol of Christian nationalism, where they do want theocracy, where they want Christian laws to be the law of the land. John, Eric, what would you add to that?
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree. That is definitely what was happening, and indeed on that Freedom Corner that we just talked about, they have signs that say, I think it says it's something about Jesus. Jesus is Lord or whatever, and I've always found that interesting watching that stream because I don't know. There's no like. It just seems like. Are you out there for about J6? Because that seems like a religious thing, but it all becomes mixed up. It's all mixed up. And so,
even on January 5th, the rally at Freedom Plaza, you had Alex Jones talking about God. This, even Roger Stone, God, brought me out of prison and set me here, and it was a religious thing. It was a Christo-fascist movement. That's what this was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. All right. What do we got next here? Colin?
Roger.
Oh, there you are. Hey, Denise, thank you. East Columbia, $5. We appreciate that. They have exceptional entitlement with zero accountability or transparency. Don't threaten their freedom and don't ask any questions either. Mm-hmm. That's a fair comment.
Yeah, definitely. 100% agree on that one. Absolutely. I'm sorry to say I agree with it, but it's true.
Yeah. Next, Colin, you there?
Oh, that was all of them there?
Oh, is that all of them? Oh, I thought I'd seen some more that had popped up. I think we might have missed some. My apologies if we missed some, because I do think there were some in the middle there. Okay, John, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for reliving that insane tunnel day with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, Corey. Wait, we do have something from Corey, or is that a new one? Tommy Tantrum has yet to be arrested despite jabbing his flag pullet officers on the West Plaza and telling the rioters around him to take their helmets, take their face masks, take his helmet. Corey, there are a bunch of people that I know have been identified that have yet to be arrested. I'm guessing that they just don't have the manpower to get there yet. There is a statute of limitations. I think we have 2 more years before that runs out. Hopefully they throw more manpower at it.
Yeah, he's one of the. Oh, sorry.
Go
Tina.
ahead. No, go ahead.
No, he's one. I was gonna say he's one of the Freedom Corner people, and he's Tommy Tatum, an extremely concerning person. His behavior has been bizarre and erratic. He's harassed people in ways that are very unusual if you become an expert in this kind of behavior. So that's somebody, and yes, he did. Corey's correct about what he did. Very concerning individual.
And
that is concerning. Go ahead.
I was gonna say also before I forget, Abator gifted a tier 1 sub on Twitch.
Oh, nice.
As well.
Well, thank you for that. Yes, please consider joining, becoming a member. We obviously don't take corporate funding. That's what funds John being on the ground on January 6th in the tunnel, me going and covering Cop City or the UAW strike. We're going to be going to New Hampshire to cover the GOP primary, I believe. Chris Garrett, thank you, $5. Always great to see Tina covering the insanity. We appreciate you too, Chris. So, John, thank you so much for joining us. I think we are going to close out the show with a very boring video. But I think Eric,
before I sign off, I just want to remind everybody that I'll be live tomorrow in Washington at the March on Washington for Gaza. That's going to start around 1 p.m. Eastern. So if everybody wants to tune in, 1 p.m. Eastern is when I'll be going live.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
We will definitely tune in for that. Everybody, make sure to clear your plate tomorrow to watch that. It's really sad that this is still going on, but I think that things are starting to change. The conversation is definitely shifting. So the last video I'm going to play, Eric and I went down to the federal detention center here in Los Angeles to see what they were doing, what they had planned for their 3rd year anniversary. It was a very, very small crowd, like crazy small crowd. Nothing really happened. They were flashing their phones at the detainees in the prison. The prison detainees were flashing their phones back. It was kind of bizarre Morse code looking kind of thing. I don't know what that was about, but let's just close out with that. And thank you, Eric and John, for joining us.
All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Eric, it was nice meeting you. Nice talking to you. I hope we get to talk some more. All right.
I hope so, John, and have a great, good luck tomorrow with the rally.
Thank you. All right. Bye, Tina.
Bye-bye. So small group, nothing crazy or violent happened. They didn't want to talk to us. I actually did try to interview a couple of them. They didn't really have anything to say, I guess. But again, it's a small group. It's not like some of the crazy stuff we've seen the last few years. So that's probably good.
I think, yeah, my what I took away from that, which I think we talked about, was two things. Or what I think is interesting, especially for people who are watching this stream, like the absolute I know it's not a lot of people, right? We've seen some more dangerous things. The absolute hostility, though, which is the absolute hostility that we could feel over there, is a marked and concerning change. You're on a public street, and the same thing in the DC one. It was because this is a parallel rally. You're on a public street, and also the other, when the I don't usually name these people, but like when that other far right streamer, Oreo Express, literally ran up on me when I was alone on the side. It's not a great neighborhood, you know. It's like I was by myself. It's getting dark. It's scary when those things happen. I didn't know who it was. When I saw it was him, I was like, this guy. When they do those kinds of things, the absolute hostility makes me nervous for the future, because all these people, there's millions of people who are exactly the same.
No, I know.
Feel the
I
same
know.
way.
I
That's all
agree.
was gonna say.
I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I had somebody actually say to me, we were talking about the start of the show, like, why do you like to sleep with children? Which is a disgusting thing to say to somebody.
Yeah. I mean,
But that's the mentality here. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. No, I got you. All right.
It was great though. It was a lot of fun.
I'm just glad it was a small crowd and they didn't get violent. That's
Small,
a win.
Yeah, no, it was. You're right.
All right, y'all, have a good weekend. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for John Farina's live stream at the ceasefire protest in DC. I was glad he was able to get on the show tonight. He had some travel delays, but he was able to jump on, so that was good. And everybody be safe tonight and enjoy your weekend.